This week on the Weekly Reid,
people are starting to take mental health seriously.
Right.
In the black community, especially our parents, it's like, I did something wrong.
I think we just need to get rid of the stigma that depression or mental illness is a white person's problem. Here at the Weekly Reid, we strive to entertain and educate simultaneously. That being said, this week's show is so important because we're going to be tackling topics like self-love in black men and how mental illness affects the black community. Now, mental health is considered a taboo in black families because it doesn't exist. However, did you guys know that approximately 16% of black people in the United States suffer from a mental illness that has been diagnosed or that is diagnosable? I found that information out at www.mentalhealthamerica.net for anybody who wants more information. And again, this is a hard topic for a lot of people to talk about, so I'm so happy to have my next guest on because I consider him so brave, being a black male, coming to talk about this topic for you all. That being said, please help me welcome Judah Klein on my show.
Hi, I'm Judah Klein from Philadelphia, 24 years old. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're just going to get into the show. So, did you know that mental health affects approximately 16% of black people in the United States?
You know what's crazy? I did not know that fact.
I figured that you didn't because I feel like a lot of people don't know that, and just preparing for your show, I did some research, and that was one of the things I found. So, like, what do you think about that? That's crazy. That's like 40, I think it's about 42 or 44 million. Like, what do you think about that?
See, I think when people hear 16%, it's like, okay, that's not a lot.
Right.
But you think about all the black people in the world.
Right.
Like, what did you say, like 40-something million?
40, it's like 42 or 44.
That's a lot of black people.
Right.
And I feel like in the black community, like, mental illness is just not talked about and it's just not a serious thing. It's just
Right.
like, okay, get over that. Or, okay, like, let's leave that alone.
Right.
Like, you need to get yourself together. But mental health is like a real thing.
Right.
Especially in the black community.
So why do you think that it is that we treat mental health as if it's just a thing that it can kind of just be ignored or brushed under the table?
I think as a community, because like all the things that we came through, like it's like we're supposed to be this strong people. So like people view mental health as a weakness.
Right.
So it's like if you have mental health, it's like, oh, you're weak.
Right.
Not, oh, this person needs help so they can like go through with the rest of their life. Like it's seen as a weakness, and I feel like that's why it's not taken seriously in the black community, because they don't want to seem like it's something wrong with them.
Weak, right. Do you think that affects women and men differently in the black community, or just period?
Yes, I think it affects men more than women. Like I feel like people have this stigma, especially of black women, that sometimes the angry black woman.
Right.
They don't think that like, okay, this black woman had something in her life that made her this way, or she feels like she has to be like this. But I feel like with men, especially like that, we have this masculinity thing, like especially in the black community, like we can't ask for help.
Right.
You know, like we're supposed to do everything on our own. So I feel like it do affect black men, black women, men and women period. I think mental health affects them differently and how they can react to it.
So I definitely agree with you. I would say I think that instead of looking at, for example, you mentioned the angry black woman, instead of looking at her like, oh, she might be going through something, you're just automatically angry, or there's automatically like an issue that doesn't have to do with mental, it's just the way that you are. I think that is a huge issue that we're experiencing right now, unfortunately, and I feel like recently with social media, it's more so coming to light, which is good. When it comes to like black families, what do you think is so hard for them to accept that their children may have something wrong with them?
I think in a family, like in the family aspect of it, I think a family don't want to feel like, especially parents and grandparents, they don't want to feel like they failed.
Right.
Like, oh, it's something wrong with my kid, I failed in a certain type of way. You know, like I want my kid, I want the best for my kid, I want them to have better than I had. So it's like, if something is wrong with my kid, I did something wrong.
Right.
And it might not have nothing to do with you.
Right.
It might have something to do with how they were treated in school, how their brothers and sisters treated them when you were at work. Like it might not even have anything to do with you. And it might have something to do with you. And it might have something to do with how your parents treated you.
Right.
But it's like, I feel like in the black community, especially our parents, it's like, I did something wrong.
Right.
And I don't want to take that responsibility. Not even take that responsibility, but I don't want to feel like I did something wrong. So there's nothing wrong with my child.
And I think a huge issue is that people don't realize that mental health a lot of the times, or most of the time, or maybe 100% is like a chemical imbalance, and people are just looking at it like, oh, she's sad today, but she'll be fine tomorrow, when that's not really what it is. Like, I've had friends who are depressed, and they could be really happy one day and really sad the next, or come from homes with a lot of privilege, and people are like, well, what are you so sad for? And people don't realize, like, there's usually a chemical imbalance there.
And I think that was a great point that you pointed out, because like, especially this year, like we seeing celebrities like killing themselves, and these aren't even black celebrities period,
right,
that are killing themselves, and it's like they have everything in the world that everybody would say, but they're still killing themselves. Like they had stuff wrong with them mentally, you know. So it's a real serious issue, and I'm not glad that they killed themselves, but I'm glad like it's coming to the light more, and people are starting to take mental health seriously.
And you know, one of the things I saw when like Kate Spade, I don't remember who, what was it, the chef who killed himself?
Yes, I forgot his name.
Bourdain, I think. I saw that like when that was happening and stuff. People were like, well, black people wouldn't kill themselves. Black celebrities don't do that. And I'm just like, that is completely not the point right now. And we need to be focusing on mental health as a whole, and not who's killing themselves and who isn't. Because just because black celebrities aren't necessarily killing themselves as much, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And I feel like our community does a good job at just acting like there's just nothing there, and we're just going to push it to the side. We push it to the side, and I feel like that's why the whole idea of the toxic black family is now coming up a lot. People are talking about the things that their parents did to them, or the ways that their parents talked to them that have now translated, but everybody again acts like it's not happening.
Just because black people aren't killing themselves per se, like they might be doing other stuff, like popping pills or cutting themselves, like it's all these other things that goes into mental health, not just killing yourself. That's like the last straw, you know. Like it's other things that they could be doing. You know.
I think we just need to get rid of the stigma that depression or mental illness is a white person's problem, and I think that we would be smooth sailing. Maybe. Why do you think it's important that we have discussions like this?
I think it's important that we have discussions like this because growing up, even for me, like when I was in 5th grade, like I'm happy to share this story because I overcame it. In 5th grade, I tried to kill myself. You know, like I was very depressed, and like, what is a 5th grader really depressed about? You know, like you're a child. Like most people have happy childhood, and I was like covering it up. Like I was playing sports. Like my parents thought I was so happy. Like, but on the inside, I was just depressed. You know, and it had nothing to do with them. It had nothing to do with my family. It was me. You know. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I live a great life now. I have great friends. I love my family. Like you know, like we kind of grew up together, like high school. Like we know each other for a while now, and like it's like I'm glad that I didn't do that. But it's like I was going through some stuff back then, and it's like I don't know. Like I feel like people don't talk about it in the black community. Like so, it's like back then you're like, I gotta keep this to myself, like because I don't know what's going on with me. You know. Well,
I've had definitely some issues with that. I won't get like too much into detail because this isn't about me, but I have had issues like that where I'm like, I need to hide this from my parents, I need to hide this from the world. I'm so sad, but like I don't know why, but it's like you kind of know why, but you like when you really think about it, you know, when people are like, oh, she has the 2-parent home, or he has a 2-parent home, or they live in a nice house, like what can you be sad? And it's really unfortunate because then you start feeling guilty for your sadness when you should be working on recovery.
You hit it right on the nail. Like, cause I grew up in a 2-parent household as well, and like people are like, "What are you sad about? Like, what? Like your parents give you everything. Your sisters and brothers are all older than you. You're the youngest. They give you everything. What can you be sad about? Like, it's not always about that. You know." So
I definitely agree. So in your case, how did you manage to overcome that situation?
So,
or is that something that you're still kind of battling with?
No, actually, I'm good now. Like, when that happened in 5th grade, so of course I didn't do it. I tried to do it and it didn't work out, and I had baseball practice. So I like I wrote a note and everything, and I ripped up the note. I had to hurry up and get to baseball practice. So after baseball practice, I come home, my mom's crying, and I'm like, what's my mom crying for? And she basically like pieced the note back together.
Oh wow.
And and my parents like, Judah, are you like, what's going on? Da, da, da. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like I just was going through some things. Like I'm cool. And like after that, like of course I was like depressed for a while, but I seen how the effect that it would have had on my family if I did it. So I just was dealing with it. Fast forward, I get to college. Mind you, I've been dealing with this like since until I get to college.
Right.
Then in college, like I don't know what it was. Like then I started seeing the world in a different light, and I'm like, you don't have to be this way. Like I forgot what I was watching. I can't remember, but I was watching something, and it was talking about self-love, and it was talking about like you not caring about anything in the world. Like when you actually start taking the time to value yourself and learning things for yourself. Like me, I'm a lover of people, you know, like I used to care about like what people thought about me. I want to be everyone's friend, and I think that was a lot to me. Like I used to take everything in internally, like, and I had to learn that people's problems aren't my problems. If you don't like me, you might see something in me that you don't like about yourself. So like when I started to learn that and really start to like and love myself, it was like, Judah, what was you doing back then? And it was like, if I could talk to old Judah, it's like, bro, just be yourself. And like I have great friends now that love me for who I am. I have people around me that like me for who I am. And it's like, I wish I could go back and like know that. Like, and now, but I'm just, that's what helped me through it.
And I think it's important that you mention self-love, because I'm definitely on that same wave as you. And I know, in fact, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day who told me that she loves that I have a I don't give a F attitude. And I really take that as a compliment when people say that. And I think when a lot of people think of the I don't give a F attitude, it's not necessarily that you don't care what people think, but it's like, I'm not going to let that affect my life. And that was something that she had said. She was like, oh, you don't care what anybody thinks. And I was like, mostly I don't, but sometimes I kind of do, but I don't let it dictate the way that I live my life. And I feel like that's the difference between me and maybe a lot of people who do care about what people think and then, you know, conform to those things. And I've noticed that you're not a person who conforms. So how did you get that mindset? Because I know that's so hard to do, especially in the black community. I know you just had like blonde hair a couple weeks ago, right?
It was like, it was a little while ago I had blonde hair. Like, honestly, like you said, coming up, like I was that person. I was in like all the sports. I was like, I just felt like I had to be this super masculine guy. But at a point it came to me like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy because I feel like I'm conforming to what everybody else wants me to do. So I don't know what it was. Like one day I'm just in my room and I just came to a point where it's like, I'm gonna make me happy. And like if that's gonna affect people around me, like it is what it is. I'm gonna be me.
Not people that need to be in your life.
It's not people that need to be in your life, and it's crazy. Like because someone said to me, if they really like you, if they really love you, if they really want to be around you, no matter what you're doing, they're still going to love you. They're still going to be around you. They're going to accept you for who you are. So I started making Judah happy. I started doing what Judah wanted to do. And my life has been way better now. Mentally, physically, like, I don't know. You knew me since high school. Like, I don't know if you've seen the change. I've seen the change in you. So I don't know if you've seen the change in me. And, like, it's just, I've just been living a much better life now that I have that mindset. You know?
And I definitely agree with that. I feel like once you break out of that box, you just are more free and you're happier, and then good things I feel like come to you naturally.
You already know.
Like I feel like once you start living your authentic life and being your authentic self, people who love you or want to be in your life, obviously the ones who kind of don't agree with it fall off, which is fine, but the people who like really, really love you are the people who stay there in the end. And I feel like that's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, why would you want somebody around you who doesn't want you to be yourself?
Exactly. And I think that's one thing I really had to learn, like growing up, like with me, like it was like I didn't want to lose no friends. I didn't want to lose no families. And it's like, to me, that was a big thing for me because I value relationship a lot. So it's like, dang, like I really don't want to fall off with this person, so I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that they don't like. But it's like at the end of the day, like that's not healthy. Like if that person's not for you, you need to let them go. Like you don't need to be in any toxic relationships, you know?
All, whether it's friendships, even family, relationships, all of it. I definitely agree. So just to touch back on something that you talked about earlier, you talked about self-love. Can you just dive a little bit more into that and kind of like what that looks like for you?
Self-love. Like for me, self-love is something that takes time. It takes work. Like every day looking in the mirror. Like for me, it's like every day looking in the mirror. Like, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whatever you are, like, everybody has stuff in their religion or in their universe that they can say every day, starting your day off with, I am this, I am that, I am positive things about yourself. Write them down and say it every day. And like, faith comes by hearing.
Right.
So if you do that every day, you're gonna start to believe it. Like, I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Oh,
like,
amen.
I'm good how I am.
Clap for that
like, I'm good how I am. Like, when you start to really say that every day, you start to believe it about yourself.
Right.
So like, that self-love starts to come naturally when you speak things into your life.
Right.
So that's what it is for me. Like, I started speaking things into my life, and I started to believe it. And like, now I'm walking in it and living in it.
Living in your truth.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, in terms of like self-love in black men, do you think that that's something that might be frowned upon, or not necessarily?
Yes. I think with black men, and being a black man, especially growing up a black man, like, this hyper masculinity thing in the black community, like, yes, we're supposed to be men. Yes, we're supposed to be the head of our households. But like, I think people get that confused with, like, a lot. Like, just because you're head of the household, just because you're a man, it doesn't mean that you don't have feelings.
Right.
Like, I feel like a lot of us are like built up to not have feelings.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
I definitely think that that's true. I think that men typically suppress their feelings because they're told they have to. And what really blows my mind is that, like, as adult women, we want our men, our boyfriends, our husband, whatever he is, to be very sensitive and attentive to our needs and attentive to our feelings, and, you know, pay a lot of attention. But as little boys, I don't feel like you guys are necessarily encouraged to be that emotional. But then it's hard for you guys because, you know, you get to like 20 and 24 and however old, and now women want you to be sensitive, but just a couple years ago you were getting made fun of for it. And I feel like you guys have definitely have a hard time with that, and that's something that I see that's frustrating, because I grew up with all boys. I don't know if you knew that, but I have all male cousins, and I have a younger brother. So things that I definitely see, and I'm like, well, you told him like 10 years ago not to stop acting like a girl because he was crying because he was hurt, but now his girlfriend is like, well, I don't understand why you don't have any feelings, and now everybody's confused, and I think that's a huge issue. And like, I feel like you just made a great point, because it's like, you told him that ... and now he's acting like this with his girl. Where do you think he got that from? Exactly. Everybody wants to act confused, and I'm like, well, I don't know why you're so confused, because... And
I think a lot of people, like, they act confused because they might really be.
Right.
Like, they don't understand where it came from. But if you, like you said, you grew up with all males, so you could see that.
Right.
It's like, if you go back down the line, it starts at home.
Right.
Like, if you told him, stop girling, stop being like this.
Right.
Like, of course, when he needs to show emotion, he's not going to, because he feel like he can't.
Right. So just going back to your issues with depression and things that you dealt with in the past, when did you realize that you needed help? Or was there a moment where you were like, I just can't?
I think it was my sophomore year of college, and I don't know what it was. I had got so depressed and homesick, and mind you, I loved college. Like, I was having fun, like, I was turning up. Like, I was having so much fun in college, but like, one day in my room, I'm just getting so depressed, and I actually called home, and I'm like, y'all, like, I don't know what's going on. Can y'all please come see me? My family came and see me. Like, they all put aside what they were doing. My two older sisters, my mom, my dad, my grandma, my niece, they all came to see me.
Right.
And like, it made me feel so much better. And it was like at that point where I seen like, yo, Judah, it's really something wrong.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it is, but you gotta get a grip.
Right.
Like, and that's when I learned that it was something wrong. And from that point forward, that's when I started looking into things. I learned how like I could reverse. And like, my biggest thing, like, people think when you have mental health, like, you need medicine, or you gotta go to a psychiatrist. Those things are good. Like, you need to talk to somebody. You need to have somebody that you can talk to. And sometimes some people do need medicine. But for me, it was countering my thoughts.
Right.
That was the biggest thing.
Changing the way you think.
Yes. So when a negative thought would come, I would counter it with something positive.
Right.
And like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like, cause at first, like, you just like, all right, like, this, you let your thoughts consume you.
Right.
But if you make it a habit, every time you have a negative thought, you counter that negative thought with something positive, it starts to become a habit, and then those negative thoughts become smaller and smaller.
Right.
So for me, that was the biggest thing, and as I kept doing that, then I started having positive thoughts. So for me, that's what helped me.
Right. And I always tell people that it's not necessarily, it's the way that you think about things. So for example, like if you're like, oh, today sucks, blah, 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 and you dwell on it, the day's going to continue to suck. But if you say to yourself instead, like, what can I do to make the rest of today better? Or what can I do to make tomorrow better? Then that changes your whole outlook completely. And that's something that I had to do too, because I had like a period last fall where I was very sad. I was going into my senior year of college. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Am I going to go to grad school? Am I going to get a job? Whatever. I was so sad, and it was just like a huge transition period for me. There was a lot going on, and that's one of the things that I learned, is that in order to change your life, you must change your outlook. And now I don't want to say that to say, oh, like all you gotta, if you're sad, all you gotta do is think positive, because sometimes people do need actual help. But for me, what worked was just changing the way that I thought about life, about myself, about my situation, and it really helped. And as you said, and as people around me have said, they've noticed a change in me, and I have noticed from afar a change in you. So kudos to you.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you, like me, I believe in God. I know everybody don't believe in God. God, the universe, whoever you believe in, I feel like he always sends confirmation.
Oh, for sure.
So us just having this conversation and you sound like you went through the same thing as me and just changing your outlook, that's confirmation.
Right.
That somebody that's going to watch this, they might need to hear that.
Right,
they just need to change their outlook. So I'm glad that you even just shared that after I shared what I shared.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like I'm not religious, but I am very spiritual, so I do believe in God, and I definitely think that that is true, that God comes to us through the forms of people or signs or whatever. But we'll talk about that later. But okay, so I have pretty much like got through everything. I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to say.
Anybody who's going through anything, like, just see where your problems are, see how you can fix them, and if you can't fix them, go to somebody that you think can help you fix them. You know, and like whatever it is in this life that you think you're supposed to do, you are supposed to do it. And I'm glad that you started doing this, because I know this is what you're supposed to do.
And
like,
so much.
yes, and I know that you see me like doing the things that I'm supposed to do. Like, so when you find your purpose and what you're supposed to do on this earth, just walk in it. Don't let nobody else tell you wrong. Sometimes you really don't need advice. You just need to go on yourself. And
Right. Well, thank you so much for being on my show, Judah. This was amazing. So we will be back next week with my friend Kate. She's going to talk about the eating disorder that she had, and it's going to be another great show, very informative. And I just want to thank you again, Judah. I know I just said it, but thank you so much for being on my show. It really takes so much guts and just, you're so brave for even coming on the show, because people don't want to talk about this, especially not black men. So I really appreciate you.
So thank you for having me.
No problem.